We'll be having a presentation by Christopher Roog of West Palm Beach Community Redevelopment Agency entitled Resiliency and Stormwater Enhancement in the Public Realm. The purpose of this is to provide information on the recent Florida Department of Economic Opportunity Curry Park project funded with CDBG mitigation or community development block grant mitigation funds to improve stormwater management, as well as mitigate risks to the protected community lifelines of safety and security, food, water, shelter, energy, communications, and transportation. And this has again, the same CCMP connection to water quality improvement priority action objective 3 to reduce urban stormwater and ag runoff pollution. And I believe, is he going to be sharing his screen?
Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. Yeah, I have I do have an updated presentation. So if it's okay, can you all see that?
Yeah, it's loading right now. There it is.
Wonderful. Great. Okay, well, thank you all, everybody, for giving me this opportunity to share with you some of the great work we're doing over here on the East Coast, especially following that that presentation on stormwater, because that could be a bit of a downer. But hopefully this brings everybody up and is a little bit more fun, and you know, sort of gives you an example of how we're at least trying to mitigate a lot of those issues as it relates to runoff. We do see it pretty frequently here in the city of West Palm Beach. We have a lot of old infrastructure that we're currently upgrading and trying to address those issues. And we see it especially as we head into the fall with king tides, when the sea level rise comes up into our waterfront areas and floods some of the streets, along with the rain events. It can be a bit cumbersome for some of our infrastructure. But anyways, so I'll be talking about Curry Park today, and really excited to share this with you. I'll be giving you a brief overview of the overall project, and then touch on a little bit of history. We'll go through the project, what is intended to be the long-term, you know, legacy impacts for this park, and then also some of the funding strategies in order to make the park a reality. Leave you with some lessons learned, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. But West Palm Beach, you can see by this map, is what I like to say one of those great American cities where, you know, we're fortunate to have a conservation area, which is on the left side of that map. And excuse me 1 second. Sorry about that. My office can get loud. So on the left side, you'll see the what is called Grassy Waters Preserve. That's our big conservation area that we have. That's actually the water source for the city of West Palm Beach. And then along the coast is the city proper, where all of the development is for the overall city. So I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with the city of West Palm Beach, but it's approximately 57 square miles. Again, it has that urban and conservation sort of mix. Our population is growing pretty rapidly, majority minority city. We are the county seat for Palm Beach County, so we hold where all of the government centers collaborate in our downtown. We're very fortunate to be sort of this transit hub, with the airport being very close to our downtown, but also having 2 train stations, the Bright Line recently being the 2nd train station that was added to our city. And then also having 2 CRAs, one of them being in the area that we're we're currently working in, where the Curry Park project is. We have 8 miles of waterfront, so stormwater management and sea level rise is very much on the forefront of our minds every single day. We do have a strong mayor form of government, and 5 commissioners that support that mayor. We have historically for the last few years have been experiencing, very fortunately, about $3 billion in new development, primarily focused in our downtown, but it does have an impact throughout our entire city. But I wanted to include this quote. This gives you sort of a little glimpse of the park looking south towards our downtown. But Mayor Keith James really wants this park to be accessible to all citizens in the city of West Palm Beach. He really is trying to create this sort of community of opportunity for all, no matter what the initiative is that the city is pursuing. So a brief history on the park. This is Curry Park. It's approximately 7 acres. Some of the lands really on the south end, because we're looking north now, and it's everything that's along the coast. That's all the parkland that is east of that road that runs along. That's Flagler Drive there. And some of those lands were given by a family and donated in the past. What's really kind of cool about this site is that it was a historic seaplane port, where there was a lot of commerce coming in via plane, via aircraft. And you'll see some elements of that in the new park design as I go through the presentation. West Palm Beach is very much a tale of two cities. If you are close to the coast, it's a very affluent place that is very close to this park, but also not too far west, only about a block or two, we do end up getting into some very low income communities. So this park is going to provide a resource to both of those neighborhoods. What you can't really see here is that this boat ramp is one of the northernmost boat ramps in the city that provides access to the ocean. And it also doesn't have any drawbridge in the way that could cause any kind of traffic delays, which is makes it very appealing. And then just because there hasn't been a lot of investment in this, we had a very strong demand from the community to see this park improved and activated a bit more, and that's been ongoing. So as we pursued the Curry Park project, we really broke it into 2 phases. The city commission and the mayor said, all right, Community Redevelopment Agency, we want you to go out and properly plan for this project. And so the CRA initiated that planning process and started with the first initial phase, which would include, I think, many of what you would expect. General information gathering, very robust public engagement. We did include some interesting aspects because for the project, because we really want the park to be sustainable in the sense of standing on its own and being able to maintain itself. So we already started thinking about ongoing funding strategies that could help preserve and maintain this park once it is built. And that's why we pursued that marina market study to see how we could basically use the park and public asset as a revenue generator that could then go back into actually sustaining it. And because we do have a very high demand for marine uses, we went ahead and pursued that market study, which is number 5 under phase 1. And then we didn't stop there. We got into a lot of other things as it relates to really understanding the operations, what it's going to take to maintain this thing in the long term, and then adopting and looking at some governance strategies that would then go into a second phase.
Remember, you got 2 sets. One was at the house.
Is there a question? Okay. So the project goals for Curry Park was first and foremost to make it an active public space for the residents and city of West Palm Beach. And in that active space, it was a place where our community could connect and come together, and really bridging all areas of the city and a great public amenity that could also include our businesses and residents and visitors throughout the city. The South Florida has really been working, especially here in Palm Beach County along the intercoastal, has been really trying to revitalize the Lake Worth Lagoon. So we wanted this to continue to be part of that legacy of really embracing the ecology of what was the Lake Worth Lagoon, and really including some very significant components of refurbishing the ecology along this park. And then, of course, engagement on a regular basis, just making sure that the community has a place where we can constantly have a touch point for them. And then one of the biggest ones, and really, I think most interested to this group, is creating that resiliency. We know that sea level rise is coming. We actually have some other projects and studies where we're working with Florida Atlantic University to actually understand what the true impact of that sea level rise is in the future, and starting to plan accordingly, and using this as, if you will, the tip of the spear to really come up with those cutting edge approaches that can be applied, hopefully citywide, but then maybe also throughout the region. And then ultimately building in the sustainability aspect of it from a management and financial perspective. So I love visuals, and this is basically what was generated by the consultant based on the community input that we received. A very exciting project that we're moving forward with, and this was the concept plan that was established or was approved by the mayor and city commission. Down on the south end, you'll see here underneath the blue herons, that's MLK Memorial, Martin Luther King Memorial, that will remain. The rest of it really does build in all of those other strategic goals, as well as making this little cove here that unfortunately won't really be for swimming, but has a great ability to allow for other water activities for folks to enjoy. In the middle here is having some type of pavilion that can have some commerce or business components associated with it. But all in all, along the coast is really sort of building up that resiliency through a type of living shoreline and ebbing and flowing with the overall sea level rise as we experience it. So now kind of getting into some of the legacy components, we took in the design, the consultant really took keys from how the Lake Worth Lagoon was established in the past, and sort of did this timeline of how it evolved, where it was initially a freshwater lake and then sort of moved into that brackish feel that it currently has today, and seeing how we can sort of go back and bridge back what was originally in place with how the Lake Worth Lagoon was from an ecological standpoint. And because we know the impacts that the estuary has had over the last few years, just with all the agriculture, Palm Beach County is a very strong agricultural industry that will be here for the foreseeable future. Obviously, the development had a big impact as well. So looking at how we can mitigate some of those things and bring back the habitat and the living shoreline to reduce some of the wave generation, as well as provide some great environments for life to grow, is something that we're striving to include into this overall project. And it's got a great starting point. If you go out there right now, it's not uncommon to run into sea turtles and a variety of other wildlife. There's the manatee viewing center that FPL has, that's less than a couple of miles up the road from the Curry Park location. And it's not uncommon to also see manatees, especially in the colder months, be swimming around this area. So ultimately, what we're trying to do is really embrace both the water side and the connection that the neighborhoods have with this park, and by building it on both sides and sort of enriching that overall Curry Park experience. So Jennifer had asked me to really kind of focus on some of the stormwater aspects of it. which I think, we will include as the park and the technical documents unfold. And that's actually what we're working on right now. But I don't have too much more of those specific details on the stormwater aspect of how all of that will be managed, other than saying that a lot of the things that we're going to build into it will address a lot of those issues, like pervious systems, increases in the size of our stormwater. But ultimately, it's really seeing how we could address the shoreline to ebb and flow with the sea level rise. So now looking at the funding aspect of it, this is going to be a very, very expensive project. And some days it even shocks me just how expensive this is going to be. But it's just sort of the nature of having a waterfront facility. So the CRA is stepping forward, initially we had said we were going to step forward with that $2 million contribution. And then, and I'll get into these in a moment, we did adopt a Parks and Rec bond, which I'll talk about here in a second. And then ultimately DEP was very generous DEO was very generous in accepting our application, which really is the lion's share at this point of the project, strictly for that construction and infrastructure to address our shoreline at $16 million. So in 2020, the city of West Palm Beach, we adopted a parks bond through a voter referendum that was very, very popular. It dedicated $30 million throughout our city for our park system. And the lion's share of that for any single park was Curry Park at $8 million. And we're essentially using that $8 million to leverage other grants, and we have to spend that by 2023, which is a good thing because it's given our community a very good sense of confidence that this project will move forward. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the past or as we go through it, but that was a really critical part of getting buy-in from the community on this overall project. So on the CRA side, the West Palm Beach Community Redevelopment Agency, we get our revenue from county and city taxes. If you're not familiar with CRAs, all of those areas go into a specific boundaries that's dedicated for the CRA. It's about $13 for every $1,000 of value. And our agency has dedicated to date $3.9 million. So a little bit more than that $2 million that was anticipated. Phase one is already complete. We funded that around $750,000. And again, it included a very robust marine market study. So if you took that out, that number would come down by about $200,000 or so. The phase two process is what we're currently in. And this is very, very expensive. But when you start looking at just the needs for a waterfront park and the engineering and Army Corps and all of the permits that goes involved, really there wasn't a whole lot of wiggle room to really get that number down, and we tried really hard. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're going to have a great project that'll be shovel ready here very, very shortly. So now getting into the DEP, or I'm sorry, I keep saying DEP, DEO grant that came from the Community Development Block Grant for the Rebuild Florida and Critical Hardening Program. So our application, some of the highlights in there was that we originally anticipated 44, that this project at most, if everything just sort of went through the roof cost-wise, was going to be about $44 million, which was a bit of a high ball, but we wanted to make sure that we didn't leave anything unchecked in the application. And of that 44, we requested half of it be funded through this grant, which was around $20 million. And the things that we requested to be funded out of this grant really were along the lines of how to make that shoreline more resilient, including seawalls, the living shorelines, like I had mentioned, really embracing what was there from an ecological standpoint with native landscaping and things like that. And then overall, just improving the system and stormwater quality of what gets discharged into the intercoastal. But we also had to outline the things that were going to be funded by the city. And that's essentially all of the fun stuff that the public really wants to see included into the park. Those are things that the Department of Economic Opportunity really said, unfortunately, we can't fund those type of things. And that's okay, because we had the public, the money from the public side that we would pursue for that. So we did get awarded the grant. It wasn't for the full amount. It was for, as I mentioned, 16.7 million roughly. And we're currently working through that grant process with DEO, which is quite detailed. If anybody else is going through it, you know what I'm talking about. They do want quite a bit of information and understanding about internal municipal processes and things like that. However, once we get the DEO grant and the CRA commits the funding and we spend through all of that, as well as the parks bond, we're still sort of anticipating a gap based on this very elaborate design that we've come up with. But luckily, we've identified about another $11 million in grant opportunities, which I will say there is, I was quite surprised at just how many grants are out there for projects like this. And really, we only need about another, I say only, but in the large scheme of things, compared to the overall project is a small amount. We really only need an additional 6 to 8 million to do everything that we want to do for this park amenity for the public. And we can use that $8 million, as I mentioned before, out of the parks bond as sort of those matches, because we didn't. The DEO just wanted to know that we had approved that $8 million. That was a big part of it, but they didn't require it as a match. So we can use that $8 million for other matches, for other grants, and all of those will go to the above ground work. So lessons learned, at least so far, because we have a long way to go on this. We anticipate the project being finished in 2023. But I will say that in order to get this kicked off, I mean, it all starts with great leadership. We had great advocates across the board. We had unanimous support. Obviously, our mayor was carrying the flag on this project, Mayor Keith James, which he was very passionate about this project. But also down to every single city commissioner. Fortunately, every commissioner is elected citywide, so they all understood the importance of great public spaces. But everybody was in lockstep, and then even down to getting local community leaders of neighborhood associations. Everybody was just in line that this project needed to move forward. And then second, CHNEP, who is our consultant on this project, really just went above and beyond in helping solidify that support. They went so far as to have individual coffee meetings with some of our loudest and most, hardened critics of city. I'm sure all of you have those in your communities. And they just left no stone unturned and really went above and beyond. And having that team in place was really, really important. And then just maintaining that community connection. We have regular updates. We have an advisory board that we constantly give updates and understanding to. And at any point, folks can get a very clear understanding of where this project's at, and we maintain that in order to build in that confidence that the project is still going to move forward with our local residents. And I think as far as the success on the funding, the city of West Palm Beach has made resiliency and sustainability a top priority. That has gone back to several city administrations now under different mayors, where it's a cornerstone of our policy making and how we approach not only city operations, but capital projects, is making that sustainability component a top priority. And then lastly, just being very clear about what we want to do and staying on time. It really does just sort of build the momentum as long as we keep maintaining what we want to accomplish at the end of the day and making sure that we do it on time and on budget. So happy to answer any questions. I did want to leave you with this photo. I do have one more slide after this that I'll leave up to answer any questions. But it's when they designed the Cove, the first thing that I thought of, I don't know how many of you are Jimmy Buffett fans, but I thought, this is a great park where you could actually have a Jimmy Buffett or Jack Johnson type concert where people could actually enjoy sort of the environment and the vibe of the music that's being played. And we've actually envisioned, if you could actually put a stage out there and have sort of this celebration amongst a great public open space and have great music and great entertainment in the midst of just this great living shoreline and everything. So it is a very cool project that everybody's getting very excited about and very proud of. But here's all of the nuts and bolts, or at least some of the aspects of what we're going to be included in the park. So I'll stop there, and I am happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Christopher, I think we have time for maybe one or two brief questions, if anybody has anything for Chris.
Well, while we're waiting for those to come in, I'll just say that the reason we wanted to bring this to you today is that this is an example of a very innovative project that incorporates living shorelines, enhanced stormwater management, and public recreation. And there is some big money available for these projects right now. And Chris was very fortunate to get a big chunk of that. But there is over 150 million right now that is available this cycle. The applications are due September 17th for this current cycle, round 2. And then there will be a round 3 in 2022. So we want to make sure that you all are aware of this DEO CDBG-MIT fund opportunity. Really special opportunity. We'd like to bring more of these funds to Southwest Florida to do these types of projects. And we do have a fact sheet which was attached in your agenda packet today and is available on our website under funding for you to review more information and find hot links onto how to apply. So we wanted, Chris to share his experience and wisdom, and hopefully to, seed ideas on the part of our management committee members as how they might be able to access these funds to do similar projects.
If there's any questions at this time, either raise your hand or go ahead and unmute.
While we're waiting, Chris, I wanted to also mention to you, the city of Punta Gorda has just done some amazing redevelopment. They're very low lying in the highest flood risk category, and they redeveloped some of their waterfront parks to put stormwater vaults and one-way flap systems and things like that in. So if you're interested, definitely encourage you to contact the city of Punta Gorda's urban design team to get some ideas as far as some of the stormwater management features they've been able to incorporate.
Yeah, no, that's really good to hear. I know we did a lot of those same strategies through a stormwater bond that we pulled for a lot of our infrastructure up and down the seawalls. So I know that some of those same improvements are being done in the city of West Palm Beach right now. Another interesting aspect that we're trying to include into this project is really understanding, the impacts once we put in the improvements. So we've got a pretty good relationship with Florida Atlantic University and their iSense department, Dr. Hallstrom, and the sensing technology that they have there, and putting basically sea level sensors throughout the park and up and down the seawalls to really understand on an annual basis what's happening with that sea level rise and measuring it real time, and having it all uploaded into a database. And the idea is that along with a lot of other, weather stations and some other sensors, that we'll actually be able to have a dashboard and to understand what's happening with all of these different environmental impacts on a regular basis, and include that, and hopefully build, continue to refine our strategies to address some of these challenges as we move forward.
Well, I don't see any questions in the chat for the members, but I'll just say, Chris, this is a really exciting project. The concept is beautiful. It reminds me a lot of a couple of things going on this coast. Some of the members here may be familiar with the redevelopment project in downtown Sarasota at the Bay parcel, which looks very similar. And they've incorporated things like stormwater denitrification in their design. And this is, that project, for anyone at CHNEP committees, is is an example of the kind of things that you can do with these CDBG-MIT funds, as well as like the stormwater basin in downtown Fort Myers, things like that can generate stormwater credits, that can incentivize redevelopment of an area and greening along the way. So awesome project. Thank you so much, Chris. We appreciate it.
And I'd love to, you know, once we have some of those technical items squared away and we've got our permits and we're under construction, I would love to come back, you know, at some point in the future to sort of show what the end product is and some of those, you know, more specific strategies that went into it. Because right now, like I mentioned, you know, we are still very much in a design and construction phase. So we'll have a lot more of those answers, and you know, I'd love to share them with the group because I'm sure you know, they'll probably be of interest to all of you and hopefully you know, useful as well.
Well, I'd at least love to hear more. I'm sure other committee members would as well. So we'll look forward. I'm sure Jennifer and the staff will keep in contact.
Wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
Well, thanks so much. I appreciate the opportunity.